Hello everybody and welcome to another League of the Premodern Magic Online Society. And we're going to be playing my little brew of late. This is a deck inspired by the Mono Green Terravore deck by TV Tyrant and then Patrick Bird's deck from LobsterCon, which is a Terravore, Exalted Angel, Oath of Druids deck. And I kind of slammed both of those decks together in order to put this beautiful concoction into existence. And this is, as I said, an Oath of Druids Terravore Exalted Angel deck that mixes this Oath Prison kind of angle with Sphere of Resistance plus Wasteland plus the Shroud Port, and then on the very top end we have access to Cataclysm. So this deck access on two different angles. First of all, you have the if you play creatures, you're going to be in trouble angle, which Oath of Druids kind of presents. Instead of doing something like Parfait, when you're going for Ancestral Chosen and the Phoenix, instead of doing that plays to control the board, what this deck does is it ends the game. So it kills your opponent and then it prevents your opponent from bracing you. That's what Exalted Angel and Terravore do. And then something very nice that this deck has is that in matchups where you can't really trigger Oath of Druids, you can just simply hard cast your threats and you can play like a 3-mana 4/4 or 6/6 Terravore that is just going to threaten to end the game, or you can simply play and morph an Exalted Angel and then just pay the morph cost and just start racing your opponent. While you're doing that, you get to basically prison them out with Sphere of Resistance, and then you have Wasteland and Port to kind of back this plan up. We're playing 28 lands and 4 Mox Diamonds, so chances are that we're going to have access to more mana than our opponents. And the nice thing about this is that Port plays really, really well with Cataclysm because it forces your opponent to overextend into your Port, right? If they actually want to be casting their spells, they need to play more actual lands, and then that makes your Cataclysms that much better. We also have access to Swords to Plowshares and Seal of Cleansing, and then Symbol Library has been an absolute banger. Like, this card has been the MVP of this deck. Whenever I have a Sylvan Library draw, I feel so much more far ahead than when I don't. And we get to play Sylvan Library on turn 1 with Mox Diamond, which can be very, very strong. It also plays a singleton Enlightening Tutor. The reason I'm playing Enlightening Tutor is basically because I'm saving up a sideboard slot. And the only reason to play Enlightening Tutor is because of Circular Protection Red, which is I have not yet played a matchup against the red deck being Sly. I have played against Goblin, I have beaten it fairly easily because between Oath and Cataclysm, like, you don't care about goblins that much because Goblin needs to kill you with creatures, but Sly actually kills you with spells. So my goal here is to be able to like tutor for Cop Red and then back that up with Sphere of Resistance and then just being able to race with a Terravore, because I don't think I'm going to be able to trigger Oath reliably, if ever. So by doing that, I'm playing an Enlightening Tutor in the main deck. Sure, I get access to an extra Oath or an extra Library, an extra Sphere, like whatever it is that I need, which is not very good, by the way. I don't think that is particularly worth a card, but saving a sideboard slot means that, I could also just play more like Warmth or like more Cop Reds, but I think that having access to Enlightening Tutor, what it does is in matchups where I'm going to be cutting Oath of Druids and Swords to Plowshares, it actually gives me a card that I can bring in. For example, against Stasis or Landstill, where I want to be cutting all these 8 cards, I still get to bring in enough cards so that I have a somewhat functional 60-card deck, and I'm not forced to leave in like some Swords to Plowshares that don't really do anything besides, like plowing my own Terravore or whatever. Because of that, that's what the Angel does. That's the same reason why there's a Bailoff in the sideboard, by the way. This has like kind of the same idea, where Bailoff is a card that I kind of don't think is particularly great against red, but it is a dude that I can bring in against Landstill and stuff. And when I was going through my sideboard mapping, I could not figure out a way to make things work, to make sure that I have enough playable cards or castable cards even in the deck. So that made me want to like add a Bailoff in the sideboard besides the 2 Exalted Angels. I don't think the Bailoff is particularly good, but we'll see how it actually works out. This is very, very much theory crafted, so bear with me. We also, in the mana base, we have access to 4 treetop villages. In my previous list, I was playing 3 treetops and 3 secluded steppes, but I actually went higher on treetops because this card really overperformed. as I was playing out, and this means that I still end up with the same amount of ETB tap lands. I don't think I want to be playing any more than 6 ETB tap lands, because even though you're playing a bunch of lands, you are trying to like port your opponent, and you're just doing a lot of stuff with your mana. So even though your curve is fairly low, you still have, pretty mana hunger requirements. You also have, green and white requirements in your mana. So the mana base is definitely very, very much on the stable side of things. Also a couple of Ritzgrove and Treva's Ruins, like one of each. And the reason for playing 2 of the Lair lands is that this is just painless colored sources, which is very nice. And also what it does is, one play pattern that comes up fairly often is that you get to like cast Cataclysm and you get to save up lands. So for example, if you have 3 lands in play, you get to, play Ritzgrove and Treva's Ruins as your 4th land, and then you cast Cataclysm with the 4th mana, and then you actually end up with more lands in hand to play later on. So this play pattern happens fairly frequently. So by having access to a couple of these, I am enabling that play pattern a little bit more often. Also, I don't think I'm going to get punished by this very often when I'm playing 26 lands without counting them, so I think I'll be fine. In the sideboard, as I said, I've been working in the sideboard like fairly large amount, because I'm trying to make sure that my sideboard mapping does work out and make sense. So we have a couple of Exalted Angels, 1 single Armageddon as a 5th copy of the Cataclysm effect, Aura of Silence, Ray of Revelation, Circle Protection, Red, Light and Turtle, which I already explained the reason behind, and then Ravenous Baloth and Naturalize. Obviously, I am splitting my Aura of Silence, Naturalize, and Seal of Cleansing effects because of Meddling Mage out of the Dreadnought deck. Then 3 Cursed Totems, fantastic against Elves, which is actually a pretty bad matchup for this deck. It also just happens to be randomly great versus stuff like Feb and Blue-Green Madness. And then Phyrexian Furnace and Tormod's Crypt versus graveyard decks, and finally a copy of Surun Orb, which is an absolute banger against the red deck. So this is the deck that we're going to be playing through this league. I have been really enjoying this deck. It's a lot of fun to play. It's much more challenging than it looks. There's a lot of like sequencing and thinking maybe like 3-4 turns ahead very often, where you're just like, I'm going to be spending this turn to like cast the Terror, and I'm going to be setting up this Cataclysm. What can my opponent have? How do I position myself to take the most advantage of this Cataclysm? And there's a lot of just simply firing off a Cataclysm in a situation that seems to not be particularly great. You will oftentimes just play Cataclysm and you will kill like a creature on a land or something like that. But it doesn't matter that you didn't get that much actual value, even though you destroy like 4 or 5 of your lands, because you are putting your opponent in a situation where they literally cannot win. So like it doesn't matter that you only blew up a couple of things, because it means that they're just locked out of winning the game. So like, why do you care, right? So it's been very rewarding and really fun to play and to navigate. So really excited about this deck. It's been also, I've been winning a lot with it, so that also helps, but it's also been a lot of fun. So hopefully you'll enjoy it as well. If you did, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you for round number 1. Okay, round 1 of this league with TerraOath. Double Cataclysm hand. Yeah, this seems okay. Let's keep this. We're gonna lead on Treetop. Our mana is clean and perfect, as it often is, and playing against basic islands. So I would assume Protog? Probably. So he didn't shuffle. We see an Exalted Angel. So I can play a Secluded Step here. I think that's fine. So we can go Secluded Step, next turn play a Morph. Yeah, so this is just Protog. Meddling Mage, naming Oath most likely here. Source to Plowshares. Here's an Oath of Druids. Here we go. Let's see what he can do about this. Oh, wow. Vindicate. Oh my god. Wow. So I can just Cataclysm here, leaving myself with a Ritzgrove, and I hold on to this Plains in hand. This only destroys 2 of his lands. It destroys 2 of his and 2 of mine. So I guess he's probably just playing some sort of Esper deck, right? He's not actually playing Growatog. I think I'm just going to play just morph this Exalted Angel and play out the Treetop and pass the turn back. Yep, I'm gonna take these 2 here. I think we just flip this Angel and we just go to town, right? Secluded Step, and another Vindicate. So now we're actually taking 3 of his lands. We're also making a pretty big Terravore. Cataclysm number 3 is definitely not the best draw here. Yeah, I'm just gonna play out this 1/1 Terravore. And just, I guess I do play out the Ritz Grove. This means I get 4 mana and I get to be ahead on mana. Oh, but I get to cycle this Secluded Step, so that's fine. So bounce Secluded Step, cycle it, find the Mox. Perfect. Yeah, that did not work out. I'm Morph. Okay. So now this Cataclysm is a lot better now. Library. So here's a Cataclysm. What do you got, Lanny? Do you have the counter spell? He does. Okay, cool. I'm gonna send the turn back. And I think I'm just gonna land another Cataclysm next turn. That's going to mean that it's gonna be my Terravore, which is gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's gonna be a 9/9 versus Lanny's Angel, which is gonna be, of course, a 4/4 lifelinker. So that's gonna be, he goes up to 19. So he goes up to 19. I swing for 9. Swings 4 more. I think I win the race. Yeah, especially with him taking 4 damage here. Yeah, if this Cataclysm results, I think I win the race. He still needs to draw an answer to the Terravore, and he can potentially do that. Well, now we have an answer to the Angel, so we should be good now. So keep that one and keep that one. And he's gonna probably keep Exalted Angel and the City. And then he probably Source of Plowshares my Terravore, and then I just Source of Plowshares the Angel, and then I have 4 cards in hand and good painless mana to his not so painless mana. He keeps a basic Swamp. Well, that I did not see coming. 10, yeah, my friend. He swings for 4. I untap, find a land, Sphere. Okay, swing for 10, down to 1, and I'm just gonna upkeep, plow the Exalted Angel. There's no way he's playing something like Innocent Blood here. So, all right. So he's playing some Esper mid-range deck. We have some Exalted Angels. We have some good stuff over there. Is my main deck just incredible against his deck? Feels like it is. I do like Armageddon. I'm not super high on Sphere in this kind of matchup. Like, he's not really playing a Xerox deck. So I do think Cataclysm / Armageddon is probably pretty amazing here. And I do like my more Exalted Angels. Oath is probably fantastic. I don't think I care about Ravenous Veloth. Mother of Runes, potentially I need to worry about. What else? I guess I just leave in 1 Sphere, particularly when I'm on the draw. Maybe on the play I bring in more spheres. Okay, what do we got? Turn 2 Oath. Yeah, keep this. Port also not bad at all. Turn 1 Treetop. Yes. Keep them coming. Library is a great draw there. So these Treetops are going to be pretty smooth. Oh, wow. Just casually find a Mox Diamond. How can somebody be this lucky? I think I just play out the Diamond, pitch in Treetop, and I'm just going to land Sylvan Library here. I could just Reshadow and port. I think I'm just going to port here. I'm just going to port the City of Brass on upkeep. This is to play around counterspells specifically. We also get to ping him for 1, which is just hilarious. Okay, so he still has counterspell mana here. Well, that's pretty good. I think I play an Oath. Yeah, so let's play a Forest. I'm just going to try to play this Oath of Druids here. This is going to get counterspell. I don't really care too much. Like, Sylvan Library, it's much more important here. Pass the turn, I'm just going to tap his City on upkeep once again. So by tapping like that and forcing him to fetch for an island in order to counterspell, I just made his mana a lot more awkward. And now he doesn't have Vindicate mana. Well, now he does again, right? So play Secluded Step, because I'm going to need second white for Cataclysm. I think I play Library. And then I'm just going to tap his land and upkeep again. If he counterspells the Library, like, that sucks. But it's kind of fine, because that opens up the Cataclysm. So this board doing so much work right here. Like, imagine if this were a Wasteland and I would just, like, sacrifice. Like, just board is so insane. Like, it's so crazy to think about, like, how much better it is than Wasteland so often. I like these cards, so let's put the Cataclysm on top, and I'm just gonna pay life for the other one. Could I try to land this Sphere, or I could just... Let's just cast Cataclysm here, and I just hold on to the Treetop here. So we cast Cataclysm, blowing up 4 lands. Then we untap. Okay, so he does have the counterspell, which is fine. So I'll just play a land now, and I think he's lacking white mana, so I'm just going to continue porting as opposed to landing Sphere of Resistance. If he had access to just clean mana, I would have probably used that spot to resolve Sphere. Okay, now he does finally have access to white. It's a morph, and now we're going to say yes to library. That's pretty good. So we're going to put Angel on top, treetop, pay 4, and I'm going to float 1, float 2, white, and we're going to cast Cataclysm number 2. We're gonna hold on to the port, gush in response. All right, that means he's gonna have mana. Keep port, keep Mox, keep library. Say done with everything in the order. Now we're gonna play a treetop, and we're gonna play this Sphere of Resistance. And it's your turn, Lanny. We know that he does have islands because of the gush, but now we can just plow the morph. Or if we find land, we get to just play our own, which is nice. Still at 12 life. So library trigger, we do find wasteland, which is nice. Yeah, so let's just put Mox on top, and we're gonna pay 4 for this. Play wasteland, play a morph. So now we're at 6 life. We're gonna take the 4 from the Exalted Angel. We can flip if we find a white source, or we will just not flip otherwise and just source to plowshares my opponent's angel and then just start hitting. Okay, source to plowshares, my angel. I do have my own swords, I'm not too worried about that. Okay, so let's see what we got on top. Another wasteland in Lighting Tutor. So because of this, I don't think I can pay any more life, so I'm just going to put the tutor on top just so I can play out the land and I can just continue hitting my land drops. And I'm just going to plow the angel now and then just upkeep his white source. He can foil potentially here. He doesn't. But yeah, we just port the white source. He cycles Secluded Step. Okay, cool. That's cool because it protects it from wasteland, but Flooded Strand. Okay, so that means he's going to have multiple white sources here. Enlightened Tutor is not good, but at least it's a shuffle effect. Okay, that's a much better shuffle effect, so let's keep that one instead. So here's a land, and I guess we just swing here. There's a treetop. If he does have Source of Plowshares for this treetop, that's fine. So swing for 3, pass the turn, untap, fetch, find plains. I'm just gonna tap his white source again. Just playing the Rishadan port game here. Once again, look at how much better this port is than these 2 wastelands that are doing absolutely nothing here. Right, so he fetches for another plains. Understandable. Dromar's Cavern. Let's go. 4 mana for a Psychatog, which is fine. We have the answer to that already, so we're not too worried. Seal of Cleansing, not great here, obviously. So we're just gonna shuffle again. Very good. So this is 2 mana to Source of Plowshares, the Psychatog. He can gain a bit of life here if he chooses to. Sure. He's gonna get to do some life gaining to slow down the treetop race. It also makes future Terravore smaller. So those are 2 reasons to get some Psychatog activations there. He did not actually exile lands though. He could have exiled some lands there. Wasteland, the Dromar's Cavern, and I get to either tap his lands or swing. I think I'm going to tap his lands. We got a forest to shuffle. What's more important, to end the game or to prevent him from casting spells? Probably the second, huh? So I'm just going to port him again. Port the white. And actually, I know that he has another white source, so maybe I should have actually ported the island there. That was a mistake. That was most definitely a mistake. Because I know that he doesn't have any use for double white, but he does have the use for double blue. Because his use for double white is to flip Exalted Angel, which he can't do with the current mana situation. So, Meddling Mage. Naming Oath. Yeah, Oath of Druids. Definitely the best thing to name there. Hey. And obviously the first card that we find. And that's pretty good. So, put that on top. 1, 2. Here's a 12/12. Pass the turn. And I'm going to tap his blue mana. So if his answer is Black Source into Vindicate, obviously that's going to be very good for him. But if his answer is Source to Plowshares, there's going to be a lot more cards for me to draw, and it's probably going to be that bad for me. He balanced the islands, and then he replayed an island. Interesting that he has figured out a way to make Esper work with Gush. which is no small feat, honestly. We do have another port on top, so I think I like my spot, because I can just double port his white sources. He's realizing that he could have just exiled all of his lands with Psychatog. Yeah, that would have been... I mean, this still would be an 8-8. So it still would be an 8-8, so it's not like he would have been in that much better shape, but certainly better shape, for sure. He would also be at 2 more life, so... I mean, that combination probably means that he would be in significantly better position than he currently is. I don't know if that's enough to actually win this, but yeah, we'll see what he has. Second meddling mage. Okay, that's fine. So this means that I can't actually attack with this treetop village, but I can attack with the terrible. So he correctly names Cataclysm there, but this with Shadow Port should close the game here. So put Oath on top, put Forest on top. We're going to swing for 12. He should take it, which he does. And now we have enough to upkeep, port both of his white sources. Usually in this kind of situation, it's funny, because in this kind of situation, you would think that it's better to like go until draw step, then port there, because that would mean that this white mana that he tapped here is going to go to waste. But actually, it's correct for me to do this now, because if he top this exactly Source to Plowshares, then he can use the white mana that he's going to have here, plus the island to sphere, kill the Terrabor. So it's pretty funny that we run into specifically the situation where you're not supposed to do that. So here he needs to answer the Street of Village somehow, which I don't know how he does. Not with 0 mana. Mox Diamond, okay, but that doesn't do enough though. Yep, alright, cool. 1-0. Good games, Lanny. Okay, round number 2. That's a funny hand. Am I keeping this? Yeah, okay, I'm gonna keep this. Just for the lols. Also, shout out to my opponent. They were saying they were just joining the league. They used to play on Cockatrice and they decided to join the Magic Online leagues. You'll love to see that. If you're interested in joining the leagues, feel free to ask me in the comments and we'll figure something out. We will help you out, fear not. Kind of just be a champion here on top that can Mox Diamond. Just easy mocks off the top. Okay, I'll take that. I'll definitely take that. Probably going to turn to Library. I don't know what my opponent's up to over there. Basic Forest. Blue-green. I'm going to be doing some madness in here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to just play a Sphere here. Sphere is going to make my opponent's turn so much weirder, I think. Obviously, they could just, daze my card, and I'm just sad, but I'm going to play out the Wasteland because my opponent is playing Wastelands of their own. And I know that I could go with a white source, but I'm going to get a green source here for Library. So Basic Forest. Here's a Sphere. Here we go. Opponent can daze this, and if they did, that would also be kind of good for me. Now that I think about it, Madness is probably one of the most budget-friendly decks in the entire format. It doesn't play any fetch lands, and I don't think it plays any expensive cards at all. It's just a bunch of uncommons. Survival is like less than 10 cents on MTGO because it's like a promo it was given out away as a promo for whatever, who knows what. I would not be surprised if you could just build blue-green madness like with survivals and everything for an obscenely low amount of mana. Yeah, we're playing another Sphere here. You know that, right? You certainly know that I'm going to be playing another Sphere here. Okay, so my opponent made a mistake there. Although I guess if they're not discarding Rootwalla, then it just doesn't matter. So they can start to discard some stuff. Okay, discard Squee to activate Survival. They can find a Basking Rootwalla here. Okay, so if they find the land now, they can start to get a little bit of value there. Get a 1/1 in play. And then I'm going to untap and play a Sylvan Library. Okay, so they did find the land. So they're going to be able to put a Rootwalla into play. Oh, okay, that was a mistake. Yeah, so I think my opponent was trying to activate Survival. I don't think it's gonna matter too much because it's not even gonna get that much value. But I'm just gonna let them know real quick on the chat that what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to click on the Survival first and then click on the Rootwalla. Okay, so now that they're tapped out, I'm going to land the Sylvan Library here. I think it's pretty important to make sure that I start to just draw the cards that I need. Fortunately, this Terrabor is not particularly threatening. I'm still going to be playing it next turn. if I do find any land, because my goal here obviously is to just go Terravore into Cataclysm with a Sphere of Resistance in play, and that should probably be pretty good. So ideally I'm going to find a couple of white sources, and as long as this Sphere is in play, I'm not particularly scared of this Survival of the Fittest, because I can very easily undo all of my opponent's work. Okay, so they gush main phase, bouncing both islands. The nice thing is that we know that they have Squee in their hand and stuff, so cool for them that they just don't care that they're going to discard here. So my opponent gushes, and now they're gonna swing with Root Dweller. I imagine they're gonna pump, and if they don't, then we kind of know that they have a foil in hand. Okay, so they do pump. Cool. So that's probably good for us. It means we're now at 16, which is potentially one less card that we can draw off library, but I don't think I'm gonna be needing to draw that many cards. My goal here is to take advantage of this Cataclysm. Okay, so they do discard Squee, notably a Squee that is not the one that they showed me earlier. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind, you know, especially with a card like this. If you're gonna be like discarding and like bouncing them back to hand, you wanna make sure that if you don't have the same arts, that you're keeping track of which arts you're actually discarding. Wow, so this one's interesting. So we're obviously just gonna put the library back, like we don't care about the redundant library, but Trevor's Ruins is a white source, first of all. And second of all, the second port is kind of pretty good considering the current situation that we find ourselves in. I could just play Trevor's Ruins to source the Plowshares, the Vaskin Root Dweller. I think I'm going to just use this turn to just play out Trevor's Ruins to have a white source in play. And I'm definitely going to pay 4, but I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I think I'm just going to play Trevor's to make sure that I have my white mana in play. Bounce Forest. Just cast my little 1/1 baby boy Terravore. It's okay, Terravore. You will grow. You will be a big guy. So Squee is going to come back here. I know my opponent has an island in hand. I know they have another Squee. It's going to be a matter of what are they going to do this turn. I suspect that there's going to be an activation of Survival because they kind of can't do anything else. So I would suspect that they're just going to not do too much here. Sphere doing some pretty good work. Okay, discarding Wonder. That's a big deal. That's actually quite a big deal. So now I can't block their dudes. Waterfront Bouncer. So we're going to be saving up the source to Plowshares, that's for certain. All right, Flying Lizard. So once again, going to discard, probably going to discard Squee, because it's free. Interesting that they went and got Waterfront Bouncer. I think if I were them, I would be trying to get more Root Dwellers in play. So now we're going to activate Library, or I guess use Library's ability and just put that back. And I think I'm going to put back the other port as well. So I can't cast Cataclysm just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to swing for a very sad one. And I'm just going to double port my opponent on their upkeep. And this is like the very nice interaction between port and Cataclysm, right? This port is going to force my opponent to overextend into my Cataclysm if they want to do anything. So here we get to tap their green source. They get to pump Root Dweller in response if they want to, but if they do, I just get to plow the Root Dweller, which is also pretty nice. So port again, as a turn back. Okay, opponent gets in there with the Root Dweller, and they're technically winning the race. I'm gonna hold on to this forest here. The reason being because if I find a Mox Diamond, that is my second white source for Cataclysm. Oh, this card in Root Dweller, but I have 2 spheres though. So they're not gonna be able to cast the Root Dweller. I should have discarded another Squee. Little mistake there. Okay, so here's the port that we knew about. There's the Mox Diamond that I was just talking about a second ago. Look at that. Put that port on top. Play this Mox. 1, 2. Play Mox. Discard this land to it. Look at that. Now I have a 2/2. Let's go, baby. There's a swing for 2. We're going to once again port. Port times 2. Squee comes back. Port continues to host. Okay, floating mana. Okay, so they're pumping. So this means I'm gonna get to, and this, this would be a situation where I'm supposed to like tap on upkeep. We saw in the previous match where I'm not supposed to tap for draw step, but if my opponent hadn't pumped there, what I was supposed to do was to just float my mana and then move on to draw step and then like tap their land to let their mana go to waste to force them to use it. Okay, so opponent just passed the turn, and now we're gonna get to do kind of the most broken thing this deck gets to do, which is to... Am I doing that Because what I was thinking of doing here is to just blow up all the lands. I hold on to Sphere and Trevis Ruins. So I tap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Play Cataclysm. 4 of my lands go to the graveyard, and 2 of my opponents. So now this becomes an 8/8. And then I'm gonna have, I play the port second main. Opponent taps, swings for 1, which doesn't do anything. I still hold on to the Sphere of Resistance. Yeah, that's fine. So let's just do that. Play Cataclysm. And this is like the kind of situation that I always get asked about, which is, you know, okay, so you're playing Spheres and Mox in the same deck. Like that's so terrible. It's just like, it's not. It is not. When you're in this situation and like you're choosing whether you're keeping Sphere resistant Mox, you're choosing Sphere and it just doesn't matter. Like, sure, like I'm throwing a bunch of stuff into the graveyard, it just doesn't matter. My opponent can't win the game. They're gonna have exactly 1 land, which is gonna be this silly green source there. They have exactly 1 land, and I have all of this stuff with an 8/8 in play. And then I'm going to untap and Source to Plowshares their only creature. Like, they can't win. Like, I actively want to destroy my stuff in a situation like this. It seems like a great deal to blow up all my things. So the squeeze come back. Oh, funny enough, Wonder is not active anymore, because my opponent held onto the forest. And I think rightfully so. It's most likely correct for my opponent to keep the forest there because they're just trying to cheese out a win. They're just trying to just beat me. Probably correct for them to do that. And now they're in a kind of a weird spot where if they attack and they pump, that means that they don't survival, and vice versa. Okay, so they're holding back to block. Are you threatened by my 8/8 Trampler opponent? Is that what's going on? Okay, so Seal obviously doesn't really do anything. Yeah, so none of these cards matter, but I don't think we need any more cards. I think that we're just good to go here. Because my opponent's only out at this point is specifically... My opponent's only out is specifically Gilded Drake, which they're not going to be able to cast because I'm just going to port them on upkeep. Actually, Gilded Drake doesn't even do it, because I just attack them and they die. So I think my opponent was supposed to attack, hope that I attack back, then have exactly Basking Rootwalla in hand, and then put me down to... They're down to 6 at that point, and then they untap. I don't think they have outs, because if they pump, they can't play the Rootwalla, so it just doesn't make sense. So they can put a Rootwalla in play here, but I just stab them on upkeep to make sure that they don't have Gilded Drake. It just doesn't matter. Okay, so they're gonna get a bunch of squeeze, but they don't do anything here. Yep, so they go get the Rootwalla. Just gonna tap their land and upkeep. Tap a forest. And now we should be clear for takeoff here. I don't think my opponent can deal 7 damage from this board state. Alright, so we got there. Game number 2. I love Furnace in this matchup, and I love me Curse Totem. So these are going to be our best cards here. I do like Ray of Revelation, not a fan of Seal of Cleansing. Armageddon, Ravenous Veil are interesting cards. I do like Oath of Druids, I do like Sylvan Library. I don't think I like Enlightened Tutor, so that one can go. 2 more cuts. Gonna be on the draw. I think Exalted Angel's kind of a banger. I don't think I care about Armageddon. I think the Cataclysm is just a better form of that effect. I like my Source to Plowshares. I could cut a Mox. Could cut a Cataclysm. I guess I can actually cut a Sphere, because I think Curse Totem is a better card in the matchup than Sphere. So, like, here we actually do have, like, a little bit of a number. Yeah, so I do guess here. In this situation, yes, it's kind of awkward. Like, I do think Sphere and Mox is not that much of a clash, but Curse Totem and Sphere is a little bit of a number, I'm gonna say. I think on the draw, I'm just gonna cut all the Spheres straight up. And let's actually let's bring back the Mox, and I guess we're gonna bring the Angels. Armageddon is an interesting thought, but I don't think that's what I want to be doing. I could see Enlightening Tutor for Oath, but nah. This hand seems fantastic. Yeah, this hand seems incredible. So keep this, and I think I'm gonna pitch the Wasteland to the Mox. I'm just gonna go turn 1 Library. No Daisies. Do I want to? Well, I guess we're gonna Wasteland the Abimaya Coast instead now, because I drew a port. So now we can effectively run the same turn again, except I have more lands than my opponent. Basic Forest. Yeah, this looks really good here. So, yeah, so let's go Mox Diamond, pitch Wasteland, play Port, play Library. And there's an argument there for actually playing the Curse Totem out first to make sure that my opponent can't go Wild Mongrel and then like play a bunch of Rootwallas on their next turn, which seems like one of the few ways that my opponent can actually get away with this game. But if they do play a survival here, I'm going to feel extremely far ahead. Okay, Naturalize is fine, because now we just get to replay the exact same turn that we just had. So this seems good. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so here's a library. Triple Forest. And nothing. Very interesting. Okay, so I think I'm just going to slam this Curse Totem here. I'm just going to draw all of these. Actually, maybe the Ritz Grove I don't need. Yeah, so let's keep the Ritz Grove on top and just like definitely draw both of these Swords to Plowshares. And we're gonna go Curse Totem, and I'm going to fetch for second white, and I'm just going to upkeep Port. This did seem actually like a match, like a game where I managed to hit my opponent's only non-basic. So it does feel like I'm in good shape here. Between the Curse Totem and the Library, opponent having... I mean, this is the issue with Blue-Green Madness, right? Like, you just have to survive the mana, basically. You just gotta survive the mana. Yeah, sure, this seems fine. So let's put that on top. Let's pay for this. And we're just going to play Terravor. I'm just going to upkeep Port my opponent. They could have Gilded Drake, so I guess that's a reason. Yeah, I'm just going to Port though, because like maybe they just have Hardcast Worm. I actually don't know what how the ruling works with Gilded Drake. So if I kill the Gilded Drake in response, do they still take my Terravor? I actually don't know. I don't know if it's an effect that actually checks on resolution. Okay, so Silver Library, opponent simply just passed the turn. I don't think they have too much going on over there. This Angel, though, this is something going on. I think I'm going to put the Port back, and I'm just going to pay life for this. But I'm just going to play out the Angel and hold on to the basic Forest. So we're just going to morph here. Actually, I'm going to play out the Forest. Reason being, like, obviously it's bad if they draw Cataclysm, but I'm really intrigued. Like, I kind of want for my opponent to play Gilded Drake so that I can Swords to Plowshares in response and kind of see what happens. I just want to do it for science. So maybe this is very much the incorrect play to make. This is not the right play, but we are pretty dramatically far ahead at this point. So if this is a Wild Mongrel, doesn't even matter. Okay, Naturalize the Library. That's fine. We know what we're drawing. We know what we're drawing another Port. Doesn't really change anything though. So we're just going to flip this Angel and make the exact same play here. This is a 2-turn pluck and might as well Port one of their lands again, stopping them from casting an Arrogant Worm, which is kind of the best thing they can do, even though it's not very good. I guess once again, their best thing they can do is just land Gilded Drake. All right, so my opponent concedes, and there we go, 2-0. Okay, here we are for round number 3. What do we got here? This hand looks pretty good here. I think I go turn 1 Mox into Port, because if my opponent doesn't use their mana, I can just Port them before turn 2. We just pass the turn. Like, it's kind of awkward because like we're not using our mana, and now if my opponent does have turn 1 Wasteland, they get to waste my Port. But I think that, you know, like exactly this scenario might happen, and now this means that we do get to tap the land. Opponent has an island and an opt, which if I had to guess would suggest some form of Stifle Knot. We can go ahead and just play an Angel and then just flip the Angel next turn. I think I'm going to do that. It means that my opponent can combo me out, but they can just do that next turn anyways. And if they daze the Angel, that means that they actually cannot combo next turn. So I think this is fine. It's definitely close. This is one of the matchups where Cataclysm really is at its worst, right? Because my opponent it's actually trying to do exactly this, right? Oh, they foiled. Pitching Island, foil, foil. Well, if they combo now, we're going to be in a lot of trouble here. Oh, Meddling Mage I can work with, because now I just Wasteland the Adarkar Wastes. Named card is Swords to Plowshares. Okay, so Wasteland, the Wastes. So I'm assuming we're playing against ArgenNought here. So Port, the Island, and upkeep. We're trying to draw something like a Terravor. Terravor would be like a very nice little 4/4. which is pretty decent. Okay, that's a good draw. That's a good draw for sure. So Seal of Cleansing in play. This means I don't need to worry about Dreadnought too much anymore. Also, they missed a land drop, which is definitely a big deal. Here, we're just going to allow Port to go to town here. Man, I'm just so consistently impressed by how good Rishadan Port is in this deck. Like it just continues to overperform in pretty dramatic fashion. Is there a reason to play this out? I don't think so. I think we just pass the turn again and we just tap my opponent's land once again. Eventually, we'll find an Oath. We'll find another Angel or a Terravor, and once we do, then we're going to be able to race. But it's nice that for now, this really helps in stopping my opponent from doing anything. Okay, Treetop, it's actually great, because this means that now we can race back, and my opponent cannot attack with the Meddling Mage any longer. So continue porting their land. Impulse, you got it. So this is now going to stop the Meddling Mage onslaught. So I'm going to be down to 10. Still hoping to find the Terravor here. Oh, they gush. That's fine. That means they're going to go to this card. So here I'm going to be at a virtual 10 because I'm probably going to need to fetch. So I am at a 5-turn clock and my opponent is on a 6-turn clock, 7-turn clock actually, because they're at 19. That doesn't really help me, unfortunately. Opponent goes to discard and they discard another gush. Well, second Treetop is kind of a great draw. So I think because of that I swing, because second Treetop actually allows me to race back, move to combat, and we already have the Seal of Cleansing in play. It's going to be really hard for my opponent to play through that. So play second Treetop, pass the turn back, tap their island on upkeep. Rishadan Port is such a banger. I think it's low-key the best card in the deck. It just consistently impresses. So what we're going to do here, since we already have the Seal of Cleansing in play, that's a good one. Yeah, alright, that's a really good draw. 1, 2, Sphere of Resistance. They kind of have to counter this. Okay, so they're not casting spells anymore for the remainder of the game. So we're gonna swing, opponent goes down to 13, we go down to 6. So this seems fine. Get a forest. 1, 2, activate Treetop, move to combat, down to 13. Tap opponent's land on upkeep. Can't cast anything. Port their land. Can float a mana. That's not gonna do too much. So they can gush here, but that means that they're just gonna go to discard. Opponent swings. We go to 6. Another port. My god, this is great. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2. Yeah, we're just gonna attack with 2 Treetops. Swing for 6. And now tap a land, tap an island and upkeep, send the turn back. This is close though. This is definitely a close race. So now opponent attacks, we go to 4, then we swing for 6 again, they go to 1, and then they attack again on the next turn. We go to 2, and then we have 2 lethal threats. Of note, my opponent can stifle a Treetop activation, but that's not going to win the race, I don't think. There's a Darker Wastes. They can't cast Source of Plowshares, however. They could cast another Meddling Mage, but that also slows down the clock, so okay. Activate Treetop. And I'm playing out my lands at this point, like these Cataclysms are not going to be cast this game. Activate Treetop again. This brings the opponent down to 1. They can stifle this Treetop activation, which maybe they should. But then I just activate again, so it's fine. Yeah, so they stifle the Treetop activation. So I'm going to give them 1 turn where they're actually going to have access to 4 mana. Because next turn now I have 2 Treetops and they're not going to be able to stop both. So swing for 6. Opponent goes down to 1. So now the Darker Wastes doesn't tap for mana anymore. So they can't cast wise spells. And next turn what I'm going to do is, I guess I can on my own upkeep, I guess I'm going to put a stop on my draw step. So if I put a stop on my draw step, this allows me to see what I draw and give me a phase where I just get to tap my opponent's land, which is going to make it harder for them to cast Stifle. Although if they pass with 3 untapped lands, then there's no point in doing that, so it's fine. So they main phase Gush, because my opponent was a little bit Gush flooded over there. Yeah, alright, cool. Got there, even after drawing a bunch of dead cards. So Cataclysm's out, Naturalize in, Hour of Silence in, and I think the Angels are going to be coming in. That's it. I'm not a fan of Enlightened Tutor in this matchup. Maybe Enlightened Tutor is just better than Exalted Angel, however. This is one of the matchups where I decided to like cut down on tutors in the main deck and add a second copy of Seal of Cleansing. Do we even care about Ravenous Veil? I think that Oath is going to be better. Like, I'd just rather have one of... I'd rather only be able to Oath into one of my big creatures as opposed to just Oathing into a random Ravenous Veil, which is just not going to do the work. I think I like this. I do like Moxen. Obviously, Sphere of Resistance is incredible. I do think Silver Library is pretty good, so I'm just going to go with this here. Okay, what do we got? We have a Wasteland, we have Oath, we have an Angel. We don't have an answer to a Dreadnought, so if my opponent has a turn 2, if they can threaten a turn 2 kill, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Turn 2 Oath is very tempting though. The fact that we only have one business spell is probably a mulligan. This hand's much better, so we're going to keep this one, and I think we're going to bottom Secluded Step. I guess we could bottom the Treetop Village, so that means... I'm really going to value ETB untapped lands here, because it is going to allow me to play around these. So I think I'm just going to bottom the Treetop Village so that I can... Yeah, this is so that I can pitch the Secluded Step to the Mox. And I'm obviously going to lead on Sphere. Let's think about this. So opponent just... Okay, now we are leading on Sphere. So if my opponent wants to... If they annul, that's obviously worst case scenario for us. But like if they daze, that is effectively a time of... Oh, wow. Really? Wow, this is so good for me. Yep, that resolves. I'm not going to pay for that. Wow, that's incredibly good for me. That is literally the best thing that could have happened. So now I effectively achieved the same thing. I effectively achieved the same thing, which is to like be ahead on mana. So now I just land this Sphere. Now they daze my Mox, so they're not going to have the daze for this. Or if they do, it doesn't matter. Like that puts them even one more turn behind. So now we get the Sphere resolved, which is obviously a huge deal. Basic Plains. Okay. So now I get to maybe resolve Oath of Druids here. Let's think about this. Okay, I'm just going to go Secluded Step and just say go. I think that Exalted Angel is like one of the few things that would prevent me from playing an Oath. Because my opponent cannot... They cannot Oath... they cannot do the thing here, right? Like they actually cannot do the combo. Alright, so... Yeah, I'm just going to play a second Sphere. My opponent can counter this. This is just a bait spell. Like, I don't really care if this resolves, but this is also really bad for my opponent if it does. So they're kind of forced to counter this. Oh, Disenchant. Okay, that's fine. Does the second one resolve? Yeah, it does. Okay, cool. So we play out the Treetop. So now next turn, we can play an Exalted Angel through Daze. So if opponent combos here, I get to resolve an Oath. Yeah, so they do have Dreadnought. We're going to take a bunch of damage. So we could get raised back here because we don't actually have an answer to this Dreadnought. They do have Vision Charm. We do get to resolve Oath. We're going to take 12. And we hopefully get lucky. But yeah, obviously the Angel is not going to cut it. So we're going to hope that we flip like a bunch of lands and that we can have a bigger Terravor than my opponent has a Dreadnought. A little bit unlucky that, you know, my opponent can daze here. They can also Vision Charm their own Dreadnought. Both of those plays would be pretty bad for me. Take 12. So they can just Vision Charm their own guy here, which would be an interesting play. Yep, exactly. So they Vision Charm to prevent the Oath trigger. And now we need to find an answer. That's a good one. All right, so play a Wasteland. And 1, 2, 3. Here's a Seal. My opponent can foil, which if they do, we are probably just dead. Okay, that resolved. So they can Stifle. There's like a bunch of different things that they can do, but I'm gonna upkeep attempt to destroy this Dreadnought. So if they have another Vision Charm, they get to save the Dreadnought, and I get one more draw step. If they have Stifle, we lose. There's nothing we can really do, but we'll see what they have. Okay, another Vision Charm. This means that we have earned ourselves a time walk. Also, I should have attacked, by the way. I should have attacked with the Treetop there. So we do get to draw a card now. Source to Plowshare. Oh, Sphere. That doesn't actually do anything. We can't cast this Angel. Yeah, I think we're just dead. There's nothing we can do here. All right, go to game 3. Changes. Do I actually want Armageddon? I don't think I do. All of my other cards just are not very good. Like, I don't love the Exalted Angels, but I don't think I have better cards in my sideboard anyway. Suranorb, potentially? No, I don't think any of my other cards do anything at all. So let's go on to game number 3. Swords to Plowshares, Terravore. I'm gonna keep this. Would like some extra business, but I think this is fine. We get to play turn 2 Terravore if we want to, but probably not going to want to. So we're gonna go Mox Diamond turn 1, I think. Actually, I'm just gonna play out a Windswept Heath and say go. There's nothing I'm gonna Daze anyway. So opponent has a basic, which is pretty good. Portent, target themselves. Strong first play. My best draw would be Sphere of Resistance. If I draw Sphere, I'm gonna feel very comfortable here. Opponent draws on my upkeep, and we find the Treva's Ruins, which doesn't really do anything. I could play a Terravore here, runs into Daze, which I'm not super stoked about. Let's just play a basic Forest and ship the turn back. I want to sandbag this Wasteland for as long as I can. I'm not going to run this Terravore into counterspell mana. I want to make it uncomfortable for my opponent to cast their spells. Here's a Mox, pitch Brushland, and I think I'm going to play out the Seal of Cleansing. My opponent can use the counterspell here. That resolves. Okay, so let's play out Wasteland, pass the turn back. Could have played Treva's Ruins there. Would love to have found a Treetop Village, like anything that allows me to clock a little bit. But this is what we have so far. Okay, now, opponent just plays a land and ships the turn back. So let's go cast a Terravore here. Very, very small baby Terravore. If they do have counterspell, I imagine they're going to use it here. And I think I'm going to continue to blank. Okay, they gush. Interesting. I'm going to try to continue blanking my opponent's Daces here. So I'm not going to play the Seal of Cleansing right now. Foil. Playing around that Daze very nicely here. Which is cool. So play Treva's Ruins, bounce my Forest, and ship the turn back. It's kind of like a pretty decent exchange for us. We traded the Terravore for an island and a Daze. Not that the Daze was doing too much, but you know, the fact that we traded for the foil is the biggest deal. There's a Plains, so my opponent can potentially resolve the Meddling Mage next turn. There it is. I'm just gonna name Swords to Plowshares. If they don't name Swords, they're gonna name Oath. They name Oath. Okay, cool. We'd love to find... Let's untap, see what we draw. We're just going to just play a Terravore here. And I'm gonna, now that my opponent's tapped out, I think I'm going to fetch now. Foil, pitching Island Dreadnought. Okay, so we're gonna fetch now for Plains. And I'm going to plow the Mage now while my opponent's tapped out. And now we are pretty far ahead on... We're pretty far ahead on mana, but they have the Meddling Mage and we have nothing. Okay, so they're down 2 islands, so maybe they don't have counterspell mana. They still name Oath, and we immediately draw Oath. Perfect. Gonna play out the Seal of Cleansing here because there's no reason not to. We do have time. We do have time. And they don't have counterspell mana, so if we do find a threat in the next turn or two, we're probably going to be able to erase this Meddling Mage. Our best draw is probably Exalted Angel or another Swords to Plowshares. Treetop Village would be a fantastic draw as well. We do have a lot of very good draws here. Sphere of Resistance is not great, but I'll still play it out. We'll still play it out because it prevents a second Meddling Mage from coming into play. So now they finally have counterspell mana, which is a problem. It does limit my draws. Silver Library would also be fantastic. Ugh, okay. I mean, we're just going to continue playing these cards because there's no reason not to, but they're not very good. I don't think my opponent is on the Dreadnought game plan anymore. They're on Meddling Mage game. Imagine if my opponent were playing mono blue instead of blue-white, right? I always keep saying that. It's just, I don't know, man. It blows my mind that people still think that mono blue can be a better Dreadnought deck than blue-white. So, Treetop Village is my best draw now. I think I'm going to pass the turn back here. I think I'm going to take a couple of hits more from this Meddling Mage. But I think that I want to double spell. Because if we are trading 1 for 1 with counter spells, Secluded Step, let's cycle, see what we find. Library. Okay. So now I can hopefully trade the counter spell for this library. My opponent kind of has to counter this. Okay, they don't. Play out a fetch land and pass the turn back. So this is going to hopefully give me a little bit of an advantage. We also do have a shuffle effect, which is nice. So now if I draw a port, okay, so I think my opponent is gushing here. So, okay, so they do gush. That means that at most they're going to tap with 2 lands. which mean with 3 lands, which means that if I do find a port, I force my opponent to have exactly foil to counter this Terravore. Also, we could draw Swords to Plowshares. You know, there's a variety of things that could happen here. So at this point, Dreadnought is no longer a concern. We have that covered on multiple axes. So it's going to be a matter of dealing with this and any subsequent meddling mages. Exalted Angel. Winter Orb. Interesting. Oh, they stifle the library trigger? That's so good for me. Good on me for sandbagging this, bad boys. They could foil this. They could foil this, but they don't have it. Okay, cool. So only realistic answer my opponent could have here is Swords to Plowshares. That's a very aggressive stifle, I think. Because, I mean, we still have 3 more turns, right? Like, so is my opponent expecting to just, like, stifle every library trigger for the next 3 or 4 turns? Like, it seems a little bit ambitious. I think that they don't have Counterspell, because obviously if they had access to Counterspell in hand, that was like a slam dunk. So that was a little bit of a greedy stifle, in my opinion, there. So now Terravore successfully stabilizes another Oath. All right, Library. Yes, would like to use its ability. So that one goes on top, and this one also goes on top. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a Morph, and I imagine my opponent's going to counter this. They don't. That's interesting. What happens if I attack? Because I definitely want to shuffle. If I swing for 6... I mean, it's just going to be like... I'm just going to win with Exalted Angel, I think. So I think I'm just going to ship the turn back here. There's no need to expose myself to like getting raised by this meddling mage. I definitely want to shuffle though. We'll see what they do. I think this is going to be another gush. Yeah, another gush. Opponent already played their land here. Most likely they're just going to go to discard. Maybe I should have attacked last turn. I'm not even sure. Alright, so they pass the turn. Shuffle on my end step for planes. Opponent goes to cleanup. Has to discard a couple of cards. I think we have this locked up now. I don't wanna claim victory quite yet, but I think that we have successfully established dominance here. Oh, they brought in the Winter Orbs, which is very interesting. Swords of Plowshares, great there. Oath on top. And I think I'm going to hold on to the top. Play a port. 1, 2, 3. Play another sphere. See what my opponent does. The Morph flip cannot be countered. So if this angel connects, I'm just going to accept my W here. I think if I make it to 10 life, the game is gonna be over. We know there's a Swords of Plowshares on top. I guess they can stifle the life gain trigger, funnily enough, but yeah, okay, cool. So I think we got the game locked up now. Unless my opponent is somehow also playing their own Cataclysms, which they can't cast for what's worth, but also pretty funny that we do get to tap the Flooded Strand. We do get to tap the Flooded Strand to force my opponent to fetch, otherwise we just wasteland it, which is pretty hilarious. But now that we're at 10, I think that my opponent's just not gonna be able to raise back. Alright, there we go. Double Dreadnought, triple double Stifle Vision Charm. Wow. Yeah, Aura of Silence is kind of a banger. Alright, 3-0. See you next round. Match number 4. Sitting pretty at 3-0. Yeah, the hand looks pretty good. So we can go turn 1 Treetop, turn 2 maybe Oath, maybe Library. Who knows? The world is our oyster. We get some interaction, This hand is pretty decent against combo, and this hand is pretty good against creature decks. This hand is not good versus, like, Dreadnought. So if my opponent's on Dreadnought, that's likely going to be an issue. But if they're on some, like, fast combo, maybe, like, not Hermit Feb, because you can't play Hermit Feb in this, in MTGO, but, like, Angry Hermit or something like that, then that could be a problem. Elves? Maybe Elves could be bad for us. Basic plays great art. Kudos to my opponent for extremely good taste. I think I'm going to play an Oath here. Like, with my opponent leading on basic planes, I'm assuming that they're going to be in some sort of creature deck. I could have played a Library, but I don't know what I'm really looking for here. Oh, it is Dreadnought, so terribly punished. I mean, if they do Dreadnought, we're... Okay, Oath. They do have the answer. So that's a funny draw. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go for Library here. I'm gonna go Library and play a Treetop. If my opponent wants to blow up my Sylvan Library, that's cool. If they want to blow up my Oath, that's maybe a little bit less cool, but they have options, and so do I. Okay, so they do blow up the Library. So we're gonna be fighting over Oath then. Woof, that's a draw. Yeah, okay, so now we're gonna start the party here. So we're going to Wasteland on upkeep. If they are playing Stifle, they get to stifle the Wasteland trigger here, but if they don't, now we are cooking. Island. Okay, so we are most likely playing against Dreadnought, meaning that we get to fetch for our planes here, we get to pull a Seal of Cleansing in play. We're doing some stuff. Now we're gonna tap the island. Although I guess main deck Seal suggests that my opponent is not on Dreadnought, that they're doing something else. Yeah, double basic planes confirms that we're indeed not playing against Dreadnought. Seal of Cleansing. So let's just fetch for a forest, and I'm just going to attack here. So 1, 2, gonna swing for 3. My opponent wants to plow the treetop, that's fine. We're gonna continue porting on their upkeep, always going after the blue source. Really good taste from my opponent in basics. I always respect people who actually take the trouble to... Oh, this is Replenish. Oh, that's so much worse. That is so much worse. Oh, big yikes. Parallax Tide and Parallax Wave. Oh, this can be an absolute disaster here. This can be an absolute disaster. If they have the Replenish here, I think I just lose. Because I'm going to end up with... I guess they don't have the Opalescence yet. So maybe there's still hope. Another island. Replenish? Replenish is going to destroy all of my lands, which puts me in pretty bad shape. There's not too much I can do about it anyway. This is obviously a terrible hand against Replenish. Seal of Cleansing. Okay, I can work with this. So what are we doing here? I think I have to play a second seal. I can seal, pitch, destroy the other seal, or I think I'm just going to play a seal and just leave it in play. And I'm going to take this turn to tap my opponent's land on upkeep. I don't think I can use this turn to swing, unfortunately. Untap, port, I think the white source. They say Wasteland is pretty good against Replenish, but I don't see it. I don't see it right now. So Cataclysm is what I'm looking for. If I find a Cataclysm, then we're going to be, I think, in okay shape, potentially. Opponent fetches. I cannot beat a Replenish, I don't think. Man, that early seal on the library ended up being such a big deal. It's pretty funny that Oath doesn't do anything for me, but also Oath doesn't hurt me. Yep, so there's a Replenish, which means I don't have lands anymore. So if they lead on blowing up my seal, I have to go after the Parallax Tide. Yeah, so they're just going for the Tide combo here. I imagine they're just going to leave me with... So they're going to leave me with a treetop. Feel like they should have left me with a basic forest here. Alright, so no more lands for the good guys. Who needs lands anyway, right? Okay, here's a land, and pass the turn back. Obviously, I cannot beat a second Replenish, so we're just at the mercy of my opponent's draw. We also cannot beat Opalescence. So if my opponent opalescences, I have to blow up the Parallax Wave in response. Okay, so they do nothing and pass the turn back. I don't think Sphere does too much, but I'm gonna go after the Wave anyway. This is because if I activate Treetop, they can just exile it, so I would prefer if that were to not happen. And I'm just not even gonna bother playing the Sphere of Resistance here. So let's get a basic Plains and Treva's Ruins. Unfortunately, we drew just a couple too many dead cards. Just a couple too many dead cards, unfortunately. They also have Swords of Plowshares, brutal. Intuition. Yeah, I imagine they're just gonna Intuition for triple Replenish, or I guess it doesn't really matter what they Intuition for. I think I'm just too far behind at this point, so I'm just gonna pack it up. Game number 2, we can cut these swords and we can cut this Oath of Druids. Then we bring in the Armageddon for sure. We bring in Aura of Silence, Naturalized Ray of Revelation, Phyrexian Furnace, Tormod's Crypt. All of these cards are fantastic. Then after that, I think I want Exalted Angels and potentially some amount of Curse Totems. I think I like Spheres overall on the play. Maybe I don't like them on the draw. Curse Totem prevents my opponent from comboing me out. But if I'm cutting Oath, I feel like if my opponent combos me out, we're just dead anyway. I still think I want just 2 Curse Totems. Maybe over in 1 Sphere. Man, I feel like Cataclysm would have really helped in that match. I think I'm gonna cut 1 Mox and go with that. Maybe should have cut Enlightened Tutor, because I don't think I'm really tutoring for anything. I do like this hand. This hand's doing some good stuff. So turn 1 treetop, turn 2 probably port into library. So play port, play library, say go. Library, it's just incredible in this kind of matchup where your opponent's not really pressuring your life total in any meaningful way. Fetch for an island, okay, untap. Send the turn back, that's a city. City of Traders for attunement. Let's activate library here, let's see what we find. Bunch of threats, just not terrible. So that attunement is pretty threatening, I think. So here I can just pay 4 or pay 8. I do feel like I want to pay 4 here. I guess I can just pay 8 and just play Wasteland. So yeah, let's just do everything. Let's just look at more cards. I'm just gonna Wasteland, and then on my opponent's upkeep, I'm going to tap the City of Traders. Port City. So even if they frantic search on upkeep, I can still destroy the City of Traders. Okay, so the attunement. Library was just so far 2 mana, draw 2, which is pretty decent. Only problem we have right now is the fact that Cataclysm doesn't do too much as is, but I think we'll have time to fix that because we don't have double white. That's kind of the issue with Cataclysm right now. Okay, so they do find a land. So that means that they're just going to destroy City of Traders, which is obviously pretty good for me. Let's see what they do. I don't think there's anything that is very threatening for 2 mana. So here we're just going to probably just blow up Skycloud Expanse. Okay, very, very happy that I was able to just get full value from library. We can swing here. Actually, I'm just going to... Let's just play a Terravore. I'm going to Wasteland, Skycloud Expanse, and I'm just going to play out a Terravore. And we're going to get our clock on this turn. Next turn, my opponent can't really combo me out here unless they're playing Mox, which I don't think they are. I would honestly consider just Cataclysm just to destroy one of my opponent's lands, like just straight up. Because it does 2 things. It puts some lands in my graveyard, and it puts more lands into... Put lands in my graveyard and in my opponent's, and it's just destroying 1 land seems like kind of a big deal. Oh, that's a huge draw. Yeah, that's an incredible draw, actually. Yeah, extremely, extremely good draw. All right, so let's swing for 4 and play out Sphere. I'm just gonna probably tap their white source on upkeep. The white source represents Source of Plowshares and stuff like that. Seal of Cleansing, Flooded Strand. Ooh. Oh my god. Yes, million times yes. I love this deck so much, man. I love this deck so much. Double port is such a banger. Next turn we're gonna get a Cataclysm, which is very nice. So upkeep, we double port the white source, tap the blue source. I think I'm just gonna slam a Cataclysm. That's gonna mean that we have lethal. It means my opponent gets to blow up my... Yeah, we're just gonna Cataclysm here. So this is just lethal. My opponent gets to Source of Plowshares in response if they want to, but I can just... I can play a land in a couple of turns. Yeah, all right, perfect. Perfect. I can just play another Terravore in a couple of turns from now, which is fine. So, game number 3. I think I'd rather have Sphere than Curse Totem. Just the one of Curse Totem. I don't like Enlightened Tutor at all, though. Bring in the Mox Diamond instead. Yep, let's go with this. Okay, so this is a hand. I think I'm just going to go turn 1 Treetop. I'm going to keep this. We get to go turn 1 Treetop, turn 2 Terravore. Which seems so... Oh, okay. That's much better. Okay, so now we're going to go turn 1 Pitch Treetop, and we're just going to go turn 1 Library. I mean, this is why... I feel like this is just the best Mox Diamond deck in the format right now. You have so many great plays at 2 mana that you get to make on turn 1. Like, it's so good. You have Sylvan Library, you have Sphere of Resistance, like all of these cards being played on turn 1 can sometimes be so backbreaking. I've been very impressed by this deck. Blue. Okay. Woo. So a little bit of some mana issues over there. So we're not going to pay for the library. We're going to pay for the rest. I think we're just going to play a Terravore now. Forest. I just want to have something on board. And then next turn we can go Aura of Silence, which means that at that point my opponent only really gets to combo me out. Wasteland. Sandbag in this Wasteland is also potentially pretty useful. Next turn, like if they play like a CD or something like that, even Skycloud Expanse, I get to go Aura of Silence plus Wasteland. This is gonna be Parallax, Frantic Search. But they don't have white mana. Tormod Crypt is probably our best draw. Wave could be annoying, but we can just use Mox Diamond. Tithe, sorry. Tithe could be a little bit annoying, but we can just naturalize it. 5 mana. Another Frantic Surge. This is really interesting. What are they trying to accomplish? They also discarded a Darker Wastes, which is a white source. Opalescent Seal. But we're getting to the point where we really need to find Tormod Script or Phyrexian Furnace. Attunement. Okay. Exalted Angel. Seal of Cleansing, Second Wasteland. I think I'm gonna pay 8. And my turn is gonna be Aura into Wasteland. Play Aura of Silence. I guess they could have the counter spell, which I don't remember the name. Okay, they don't. Cool. So swing. We're gonna blow up the city. I'm blowing up the cities to make sure that they can't replenish next turn. But I really need to find Tormod Script or something like that. So that's why I just drew the max amount with Library. Aura of Silence also means that effectively Replenish is the only card that matters at this point. Because just they're not going to be able to raise my Terravore by just casting random enchantments to buy time, right? Like, so Parallax Tide, Parallax Wave, they don't do anything anymore. Even Attunement is just, they're going to get one look, and that's going to be it. They're not going to be able to accrue value over time, which is something that the Replenish deck does very, very well. So if they play a non-basic land, I think that we win. So they need to play a basic plains this turn, or a basic island, and then next turn they need to play a white source and immediately replenish. And then we actually have draws to stop that from happening, right? Because we can potentially draw a port, we can potentially draw Sphere of Resistance, like any sort of card that delays my opponent's, even like just Tormod Script just wins the game on the spot, right? Attunement, Opalescence, Tide, Wave. All of those cards were discarded. My opponent needs to hit a land drop here. And the best land drop they can hit is specifically basic plains. 3rd blue source, but at least it's a basic, so I can't wasteland that. So my opponent can just untap, play a white source, and kill me. So I need to find Sphere of Resistance or something like that. None of those do it. Their graveyard is super stacked. Replenish kills me. So what I'm going to do is I can't wasteland, and I don't think there's any reason for me to want to wasteland, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put both of these back on top. I'm just going to land the Terravore, and that is going to set lethal up for next turn. I'm trying to think if I want to shuffle, but I don't think shuffling matters. So shuffling would give me a new look, but the problem is, like, the only thing that matters is the Replenish. There's no other card that matters here. So they need to have plains into Replenish. And then I have Terravore here, so I'm setting up lethal for next turn. What they can potentially do is they can have the counterspell Arcane Denial, but they didn't have it. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm just gonna Wasteland. Does Wasteland do anything in the face of Frantic Surge potentially? Because I don't think that looking at more cards matters whatsoever. Like, if my opponent if they do have Replenish, they're just gonna be able to just leave me without any creatures and without any lands, and then I'm just gonna lose the game from there. Because they have double Opalescence. I just cannot interact with their stuff. So game's over. So I'm just gonna play Wasteland, and I'm just going to swing. And this is just, if my opponent has plains or, like, I guess any white source into Replenish, we lose. And if they don't have exactly that, then I'm going to win. No intuition on end step, so they need to just have it in hand. There's the white source, and they have it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, man, that's so brutal. Like, if we had found a sphere, we had so many cards there that would have helped us. But we're dead now. Because my opponent can just always protect both of their Parallax Waves, and they can protect both of their Opalescences. So they can leave me with no lands, and they can leave me with no creatures. So this is just GG's. All right, we lose. Man, that was so close. That was so close. I felt like I was in this game until the very, very, very end. But I mean, this is just a bad matchup. This is just a very, very bad matchup. It's brutal to think about the amount of outs that we had here, but all right, see you for the last round. Okay, this is like a fine disruptive hand. It has a little bit of a could be anything effect going on. Careful study. All right, let's see what my opponent is up to over there. We can cycle Secluded Step turn 1, Deep Analysis, Rootwalla. Okay, that's kind of scary. Let's see what we draw. Source of Pleasure is not bad. Play Mox Diamond. I think I'm going to pitch this basic forest here. And I'm gonna play Treetop turn 1. If he has a Wasteland, that's a little bit worse. Oh, he's thinking about dazing these Mox? That'd be great, actually. Just time walks himself. Yeah, I'm game. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna say no there. I'm just gonna play a Treetop and ship the turn back. If he has a Wasteland, that's a little bit of a bigger issue, but I think that's fine. There goes the island. I don't think I'm scared about Stifle or anything like that. Play a fetch land, pass the turn back. So now we can either plow whatever my opponent plays, or we can cycle Secluded Step. Combat, fetch. Okay, so no spell and no land. So that explains why my opponent went ahead with the other line, right? So okay, so we're just gonna play basic forest here. Do we just swing? I think we just swing. And we just start racing back. There's an argument for like holding back to block, but then if my opponent finds a green source, then I actually cannot block, which is really awkward. Wild Mongol is gonna get Source to Plowshare. That's a good draw. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna go 1, 2, 3 to play a Terravore. And then we're going to fetch. And I think I want to do this now and just plow the Mongrel right now. My opponent can daze this, but if they do, then their mana is going to be kind of awkward. So the only thing that would be a problem here would be Gilded Drake. Gilded Drake would be kind of a beating, if I'm being honest. But it is what it is. Aquamoeba. That one I can beat. Library is quite strong. So play out Library. I think I actually want to plow the Aquamoeba right now. Because if my opponent had another Wild Mongrel, I would have definitely used it there. I'm just going to play out a Wasteland, and I think we swing. So swing for 3, because once again, we can't really block. Aquamoeba number 2. Rootwalla is going to get in there most likely. Here we go. Take 1. It's the Library. Seal of Cleansing is probably going to have no targets here, so I'm just going to put back the Seal. And I guess what we can do is let's pay. If I Cataclysm here while my opponent's missing land drops, I hold on to the Treetop. We play around Daze. Yeah, this is fine. Hold on to the Treetop, and we hold on to Treetop, Terravore, Sylvan Library. And I think my opponent's just going to hold on to those 2 cards. They don't have any green sources. And now we're just going to go, we have a huge Terravore, play Mox Diamond, pitching Treetop, and we have a 2-turn clock. And opponent concedes. Okay. So Romero seems to be on the Blue-Green Madness version that does not play survivals. So I think I definitely like Exalted Angels, and I'm just gonna cut Seal of Cleansings. Definitely want definitely want Spheres, definitely want Curse Totem. I don't want Enlightened Tutor. Cataclysm seems great, but I'm not too sure about something like Library, particularly on the draw. I don't care about Thermal Strip, though Phyrex Infernus is fantastic. So 2 more cuts. I really like having access to all of these great 2-drops. Maybe I should cut like 1 sphere on the draw, maybe 2 spheres on the draw. The other option would be to cut some number of Exalted Angels. Cards I need to watch out are going to be stuff like Moment's Peace, Gilded Drake, stuff like that. Huh, interesting. I think we keep this. Turn 1 Furnace is very interesting. Turn 1 Rootwalla. Let's play Treetop and say go. Hopefully my opponent's going to have... they got some basics. And this is the issue with Wasteland, right? Sometimes it ends up being really, really awkward. Waterfront Bouncer. So Phyrex Infernus, say go. Not too much to do here. Our hand is pretty terrible. Oath would be great. So at least stuff like Deep Analysis doesn't really do anything. And here we're probably going to just play out a Morph Exalted Angel, which doesn't really do that much, just a 2-2, but Source of Pleasure is nice. So we're just going to play a Morph Exalted Angel. So that's a 2-2, so that's going to block the Waterfront Bouncer, so that's 1 less damage we're taking, which is nice. And we're not worried about Wonder, which is cool. Next turn, we're probably going to do the exact same thing. Yep, just going to take some damage here. Arrogant Worm would be kind of a beating, but at least it looks like Romaria doesn't have it. Another Terravore. Well, this draw worked out in the worst possible way, huh? I think we're just gonna have to pass the turn here. And Romara's gonna be able to like Waterfront Bouncer my Morph back to hand. Ugh, that sucks. So there's an Arrogant Worm. Surprised he didn't do that during combat. So we have to plow the Waterfront Bouncer, unfortunately, even though I really would want to get rid of the Mongrel instead. So here what I can do is I can block the Worm with both Treetop and the Morph. It's a Wasteland. Okay. If my opponent has Unsummon, we are going to lose. But if they don't, at least this is a profitable block, technically speaking. So we lose to unsummon, but like our draw was super awkward, so I think that it makes sense. The thing is that if my opponent kills the treetop, if they kill the treetop, that means that if I find a white source, we get to flip Exalted Angel next turn, and then potentially raise back. Pump Rootwalla means we're taking 5 here. So I'm going to float a mana, and I'm just going to sacrifice Furnace, because I really need to find a white source to flip my Angel. Oh no! Oh my god, that's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. White source. Ugh. We also don't have double green now. This is an absolute disaster. We're gonna wasteland anyway. And yep, here's a morph. Morph number 2. This means I get to double block the Rootwalla at least. Oh, just hardcast Daze. Just punishing me for my sequencing. So we're just gonna swing for 2 here because I think the only way that I can win this game is if I find a white source and I just raise my opponent. So we're gonna take 5 up to 9 and up to 8 here. And then I'm going to hold back to block and flip. That's the goal at least. And if my opponent has a Wonder or Intuition or anything like that, we're just gonna lose to that. But white source. Yeah, I can chump block there, but at that point I cannot raise back. Yeah, that was like the most awkward draw I've ever seen out of this deck. That was pretty funny, actually. Am I interested in Surinor? I don't think so. Cataclysm seems fine. Yeah, I think this is okay. I do like Sphere of Resistance a lot better on the play. I guess not that much better. I don't like it better than all of my other cards, at least. Okay, we're on the play now. Hopefully we're gonna have a more balanced draw. This seems good. Okay, I can work with this. So, Treetop Village. We do have to port turn 2, which is nice. Then we can set up Exalted Angel, which is also pretty nice. Turn 1, Careful Study. Discarding Arrow on the Worm. Okay. So that tells me that my opponent probably doesn't have an enabler, because otherwise it would have been good for them to save the worm. But that probably means that they don't have that much stuff to do turn 2. Man, another Angel. Brutal. So now we're going to port the island, meaning that we're only going to take 1. My opponent's not going to be able to cast their Mongrel slash what's his name on turn 2, which is good. And I think I'm going to port the green source on turn 2. So play Plains, ship the turn back. We're going to be porting the green source. I think I'm more scared about Wild Mongrel than anything else. Now next turn we're going to play Exalted Angel. Careful Study is not super scary right now, because if my opponent had more Rootwallas, they would need to just like naturally find the Rootwallas. The exact same discards. Rootwalla plus Worm. So this really speaks to my opponent just not having the 2-drop there. So I think I'm just plowing this Rootwalla. Mostly because I have multiple plows. My opponent could have dazed that, but I don't think I care. Cursed Totem is real nice. I'm gonna just play my Exalted Angel here though. Play Exalted Angel through the ace. Next turn we get to flip. So my opponent's gonna get 1 turn with actual mana to do whatever they want. Gush. Oh, he's playing Gush. Damn, Gush is so bad. It's not good in the blue-green deck. Gush is very much not good in the blue-green deck. So I don't care about killing this right now because I'm just going to be able to raise fairly easily. So I'm going to take 3. Do I play around Gilded Drake is the question. I don't think I do. That's a card. Okay, so I'm just going to play an Oath and I'm just going to play Cursed Totem. I think I attack? Because I don't want to get like my Angel, like something happens to my Angel, like naturalize or whatever. Take 1 here. Just pass the turn. Huh, man, this is so close. If I get unsummoned, it's kind of a disaster. So I'm just going to play Sphere, see what my opponent does. 3 mana to Circular Logic. Not paying for that. Just going to swing for 5 and pass the turn back. Well, my opponent cannot really play creatures, because I'm just not going to trade with this Basking Rootwalla, so they just have this stupid 1/1 stuck in here. And now we're just going to flip the Angel. Another Sphere. Yeah, okay. Sphere, and they're going to do the same thing. Okay, it's fine. Not paying 7, thank you. Just going to upkeep, tap their basic forest. And I'm not attacking there because I don't want my opponent to be able to chump block. Okay, so they did find the green source anyway. Deep Analysis. Cast the hard way. Land would be fine, okay. So just gonna flip and swing. I know, Cursed Totem plus flipping Exalted Angel. You love to see it, right? You love to see it. But yeah, that's actually how the rules work. I'm gonna tap the blue source here because they have deep analysis that I know of in the graveyard. So Wild Mongrel's just a 2/2. Here I'm going to trigger Oath, I think. Want to place a land. No Gilded Drake is good. Definitely gonna trigger Oath. And what do we get? TerraOath, which is a 9/9. Second Curse Totem. Yep, that seems decent. So this should lock it up, I assume. Because I just don't block with the TerraOath, and I just double tap my opponent's, I guess, their blue sources? I guess I'm just going to tap their green sources. Tap green, and tap green. Opponent fighting the fight, but at this point, even if they find Gilded Drake, they are kind of forced to take my TerraOath, so the Exalted Angel should just end the game on its own. Non-survival version of Madness is pretty interesting, but I think that survival just does so much. I know that you have to get a little bit luckier, because the mana base is really hard to make work. But like the upside, the upgrading power level that you get is just so ridiculously huge, right? The power upgrade that you get is just kind of ridiculous. Okay, so get another TerraOath. Just getting there. All right, GG's Romario. 4-1, not bad. In this league up with a 4-1 record, not half bad. This deck continues to just perform very, very well. I mean, it's just doing something really, it's very strong. It is very, very strong. Like, every single one of these cards is just so good, just so pound for pound strong, that it doesn't surprise me that you're putting them together and they have like a cohesive game plan that works with itself. You know, like all of the different pieces kind of like do so much work with one another that it doesn't surprise me that it just performs well. Like it's just a very, very strong deck, like a very strong shell. I do like having access to the extra Treetop Village. I feel like that was a very, very positive change. Counting down on Light Tutors, also another pretty positive change as well. I'm continuously impressed by the 3 libraries. Like this card just continues to just overperform every single time. I don't think I want to have access to the 4th one. Like 4th seems like overdoing it a little bit. They do stack very poorly, but it's pretty funny because like your opponent is very incentivized to destroy them before you even get a trigger, and after you start getting triggers, like redundant copies don't really matter unless you get pretty unlucky and there's like 3 of them on the top of your deck or like 2 of them on top of your deck, because you can just like leave them back and just shuffle them away or something like that. So I think that the libraries have been very, very strong. They have overperformed. They have low-key been the MVP in the vast majority of matches that I've played. Port is the other MVP. Like these are the 2 cards that continuously overperform, and I'm just really impressed by the overall package, right? Like the whole package, the prison side of things with Sphere plus Oath of Druids combined with just like the beat down capabilities of a card like TerraOath really makes for a strong and cohesive shell, which just works out very, very well. I am interested in just trying different things in terms of the sideboard. Certain cards that I'm a big fan of, like the Armageddon has been good, Aura of Silence, Ray of Revelation. There are certain cards that are just like straight up bangers, but like this Enlightened Tutor and the one in sideboard, Ravenous Bailoff, like all of these cards that are just kind of meh, that they're just like there as cards that could be great, but they're not necessarily as great as I wish they were. It kind of feels like there's more experimenting and more like trying things out to be done. But this seems like a very strong starting point, and this main deck has felt as close to perfect as I could really have hoped for. There's so little fat in this deck, right? Like it feels like most of the fat has been trimmed. The deck is very well rounded and it has a very good, a very strong and very solid proactive game plan. And it also plays the reactive game very, very well. The capability of pivoting that this deck has is really impressive. Even against the Replenish deck, I mean, we were almost there. Like, we just kind of raised my opponent into a situation where we had 4 Cataclysm and Armageddon, we had Tormod's Crypt for Phyrexian Furnace, we had so many outs. Even like the Curse Totem would have allowed us to stop my opponent from like doing their thing, right? It would have stopped my opponent from actually Replenish killing me. So Sphere of Resistance, like all of these cards would have just allowed me to just close the game up and just to turn the corner, because the TerraOath just puts so much pressure, unless you have a weird or the weirdo draw like the one that I had, like the actual 4 TerraOaths and like didn't even have the mana to cast them, which happened only once in like the 20 matches that I've played so far. I feel like the mana is very good in this deck. Obviously, you can have like some awkward draws, like that's gonna happen with any deck, right? But the mana feels like it's very, very good, very well rounded. I almost never had trouble as long as I thought about it multiple turns ahead, right? Like as long as I was very, very careful in how I sequence my lands and how I fetch and stuff like that, it felt like the mana was very, just very functional. And even though I have some pretty steep requirements with double white and double green, it didn't punish me too much, and I was able to just cast my spells in the correct shape or form that I wanted to. Continue to be impressed by this deck. Looks very good, very, very fun. We'll continue working on it. Right now, I feel like I have 3 little pet decks going on in simultaneous, which is obviously like blue-white Dreadnought, and then Elves and this green-white TerraOath deck have really piqued my interest, and I feel like I am splitting my love evenly between the 3 of them. So do expect that's going to continue to be the case. So we'll see, more things that I want to be trying out in the future. But that's going to be it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great rest of your day and take care. Bye-bye.